not the, what's the one with the mobile homes?
No, it's the one, that's the, it's the one after that.
Yeah, June. I think.
Diane Durant is the one that, not the mobile home park.
Okay.
They're building two now.
Oh. And
They're
do
right
the
along
Pearsons
Kent
have
Street.
that? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, on the kind of the triangle there.
So I see you contacted Lily about the same time I did here today. Got the tickets, yeah.
I think she has a handful of them.
Yeah. So, okay. Okay. Well, part of it has to do with this, the field project, I think. I don't know about the. I've never
I
ordered.
was just at the swimming pool.
Oh, yeah. It's gonna get pretty busy this week, I bet.
I don't have my timekeeper here tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
There it is. All right, welcome to the Hermiston City Council meeting for July 25th. I've got a declaration of a quorum. We have Councilor Trimmer and Councilor Duran that are excused this evening. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome everyone this evening. It's nice to see a full house and full chairs and actually some younger members in attendance. Decreased the average age by about 30 years. Council, I'm going to ask if we can move item number 10A up in front of the public hearing, so right after the consent agenda. Would you guys be okay with that?
Fine.
Yeah. Fine. Okay. That way, all these young men and women that are sitting here this evening don't have to stick around for all the boring minutia stuff. Well, I mean, it's interesting. It's important. If you would like to, you can. But we'll let them get to their comments at that time. I do have a proclamation I'm going to read this evening. It's for National Night Out for 2022. Whereas the National Association of Town Watch is sponsoring a unique nationwide crime, drug, and violence prevention program on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, entitled National Night Out. And whereas the 39th Annual National Night Out provides a unique opportunity for the City of Hermiston to join forces with thousands of other communities across the country in promoting cooperative police community crime prevention efforts, and whereas the citizens of our neighborhoods and Neighborhood Watch play a vital role in assisting the Hermiston Police Department through joint crime, drug, and violence prevention efforts in the City of Hermiston, And whereas police community partnerships, neighborhood safety, awareness, and cooperation are important themes of National Night Out program. Now therefore, I, Dr. Dave Drotzman, do hereby call upon all citizens of Hermiston to join the Hermiston Police Department, the National Association of Town Watch, in supporting the 39th Annual National Night Out on Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. Further, let it be resolved that I, Dr. Dave Drotzman, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022 as National Night Out 2022 in the city of Hermiston. Mr. Morgan, what's planned for that evening? Or is that up to Mr. Edmiston?
I believe Mr. Edmiston would have more.
All right. What do we got going on that night, Chief?
So in today's paper, there was an article, or at least it's online, an article talking about the medallion hunt. The clues to the medallion will start in the paper tomorrow. And then as far as we have done in the past, whoever finds the medallion, their neighborhood will have an ice cream party put on by the mayor and the council. As far as the mayor and the council, August 2nd, 5:30 in front of the fire department, police department. 5:45, we'll head to the neighborhood that found the medallion for the party.
And it's usual, too, that there are other neighborhood kind of associations that get together and kind of celebrate, get to know each other, that sort of thing, too, right?
Yes, other than the heat. I can't remember if it was last year that the
Yeah.
heat kind of put a kibosh on some other people's parties.
So if people are interested in hosting one of those, they get a hold of the police department. How do they go about doing that?
They can call the police department, ask for Corporal Tim Myers. He's our organizer. His email address is also online.
Okay, perfect. So if your neighborhood would like to host a National Night Out event, get to know your neighbors. Knowing your neighbors helps in crime prevention. And so if you would like to host and join us, that's August 2nd. And look forward to the medallion winner again this year, too. So that's going to be in the paper. The first clue is when? Tomorrow. All right, so good luck. All right, so we're at the first opportunity for citizen input. So anyone that would like to speak to the City Council on non-agenda items, so any of the agenda items that we're going to speak to tonight, you'll have an opportunity to talk to as well. But if there's an item for concern that you would like to address with the City Council, please come up to the microphone up front, introduce yourself by name and address, try to limit your comments to less than 5 minutes, and direct them to me. Come on forward. Rose, can you push the button there and that? Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
My name is Rose Thomas. I'm from Hermiston, Oregon. I live behind Pizza Hut. There's a problem with a drug house, a trap house, whatever you want to call it. It's the Cooley House. You guys are well aware of it. Something needs to be done. The people in the community, we're all good friends. Everybody knows everybody. We're tired of being robbed. Last week, it happened to my sister. She had her weed eater at her front door. If anybody is that comfortable coming to someone's front door and taking something from their front door, it's a problem. I'm single and disabled. My sister is disabled. All the people around the block of this house are single women mainly. But it doesn't matter because everybody's been robbed. A city worker, George, he just got his ladder taken from him. On the other street, her son's bicycle got stolen right out of their yard. Everybody, I found out, has camera systems. I'm just finding this out. We're getting ready to get them. But I want to know, what is the city going to do about this house? Because I've personally spoken to Adam myself and asked him, what do you want us to do? What do you propose we do? Your people are robbing us blind on these streets. It's bad enough to where I was in my mother's belly going to this church. And all the years before these people moved in there, that church had never been robbed once, and I'm 55 years old. And my mother carried me going to this church, and I went there as a baby. It had never been robbed until the Coolies moved in. They took the lawnmower from the church. They took $800 out of the church. They took his laptop that he had when he was in Bible college. They took the Cadillac converter out of the church van. He can't even keep it there anymore. And something has got to be done about this house because we are just flat out tired. I'm tired I don't know what to do. The city has to do something about this house because people are tired of getting robbed. What more can we do? We're putting camera systems up. We've talked till we're blue in the face to him. It doesn't stop nothing. One monkey ain't gonna stop no show, not next door to my house. But I'm a single disabled woman and I need help because you guys have no clue what I've went through. I've had a drug addict run up in my house when I opened up my door, ran in my house. I had to call the police to get him out of my house. And I'm disabled and single. Literally, I'm yelling at this man to get out of my house. And when I went outside, there was another man in my yard, the man that chased him into my house. And I told him, get off my property. This is what I've had to go through living next door, and I've got plenty more stories. But I'm single, and nothing's being done. We need help. We've got to have help, and the city has got to help us, Mr. Drossman.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Sorry about your unfortunate situation that you're in. I think duly noted. We'll definitely take a look at the situation and see what we can do to address it better for you. Sorry to hear about things that are going on over there. Nobody should have to deal with that. You're right. Others that would like to speak? Well, feel free to come up to the microphone.
I'm Tasha Workman. I live at 53 West Beach. I have 5 children who go to the park right across the street from this drug house. These people are they're using the restroom outside where children can see. They're doing drugs in front of our kids at the park. There's trash buildup everywhere. It smells like a sewer plant over there because of them. I also have had things taken out of my yard. My son's bike was the recent one. They came up my driveway, about 20 feet into my driveway to take the bike. They're stealing from everyone. And their trash that they bring to the neighborhood, and it just builds up around the house. If you drive by it, it's disgusting. I have to check the park for needles before I let my kids play there. And that's supposed to be a city park for children. And I have 5 young kids. They shouldn't have to see that every day. And I know that they're just flopping there. They're squatting. So I don't know how much can be done, but I'm hoping that you guys can help us. Because we've called the cops daily. I mean, they cry out for drugs in bushes. They cry in bushes all the time. I've had a call recently because one was hiding in the bush at the realty crying for drugs. So.
Thank you, Ms. Wortman.
Jackie Linton, Hermiston. I want to thank the police department for stepping up more patrols in the area. However, these people are up, and it's become a homeless camp like. A lot of homeless people are going there from, I don't know, and there's a lot of men there. And like Ms. Thomas was saying, most of us are single, living by ourselves, and we have all these men that some of them look like they're in their 20s and 30s at this house. It looks like a dump yard. There's so much trash there, and drugs, and people. I've opened up my door because I get up early to go to work, 4 in the morning just to get fresh air, and I see somebody going down the street with bags of cans heading that way, and I'll watch to see if they're going to go into that area, that house. So the house, and then it's like a garage. There's a bunch of men all standing there. So we need for something to happen to get them out of there before things escalate more. And I've also seen over in the park where one guy the other day was tripping. That's an old word, but I'm old. And just doing all kinds of movements and talking to themselves over in the park. So if you wanted your kids to go play, you couldn't even let them go over there because they're over in the park doing that. And this is less than 1,000 feet. This is just maybe 2 or 3, not even that, 100 feet. Just right across the street. That's it, where they are. And it's become a big nuisance. So we really need for something to happen. The person that owned the home passed. He had no children, left no will. And so a relative of his decided to go in there, and they were on drugs and everything, and then they just started letting any homeless person that wanted to come in there just come in. So we need something to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Linton. Anyone else this evening would like to speak? Okay. We're going to move on to the consent agenda items. Consent agenda items A through H. Are there any of those that need to be pulled by the council? Yes? Councilor Peterson?
It looks like I need F. I can step aside. Yeah.
Is there conflict there or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I thought
We're
F-
going to pull F.
I thought F was on there last time. Yeah. I thought
Does it
F-
have to be posted twice? Is that the deal?
Yes.
It has to be
Okay.
posted twice. Okay.
Slight conflict.
We'll pull F. Any others? Okay. Would anybody like to speak to consent agenda items A through H? All right. Can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items A through H except for F?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Davis, second by Councilor Spicer Kuhn to approve the consent agenda items A through H except for F. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Now F, Councilor Peterson. Councilor Peterson has to remove herself because of a direct conflict of interest on a confirmation. I believe it's her husband. And so, anybody in the audience have public comment about item F? Okay, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda item F?
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Councilor Barone, seconded by Councilor Myers to approve consent agenda item F. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Councilor Peterson, you can come back. That's one of those weird rules, kids, if you're watching this and you're wondering why she had to go behind the curtain. When we have a direct conflict of interest, they actually have to remove themselves from the actual arena of public business, and then they can come back in after their conflict is resolved. All right, now we're going to move on to 10A, decision related to the EOTech field development. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, so we have a couple of members of the public here who have been helping out with master planning at the EOTech facility, and they're here to make a presentation to you about how to implement that EOTech master plan development.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Luke Swanson, 1320 West Elm Extension, Hermiston, Oregon.
Josh Burns, 1014 Southeast Banker, also Hermiston.
So Mayor Drotzman, Hermiston City Council, thank you for having us tonight. I am really, really excited as committee cross family and the youth of our community, as well as Chris Meyer and Tracy Hunter from Made to Thrive. About 4 months ago, I approached the EOTech committee to see if we could gain enough interest to help push along the fields up at EOTech. It's, as Mr. Morgan said, it's always been a master plan item, but I'm not very patient, and so I wanted to see if we could possibly do this as a community project. And so I reached out to several folks that I knew that had interest in this. Other committee members with me are Josh Burns, Scott Purswell, Dustin Rysdam, Adrian Filippi, Paul Barnett, Weston Putman, and Oscar Fluentes. And over the last 4 months, we've met at least one time a week, sometimes more, planning, designing, researching, getting budget items together on how we can pull this off and how much money it's going to take. And I'm super excited because every meeting that we had, every phone call that we made, there was nothing but positive things about this. One of the main objections we always got was, the water project. We're on leased water up there. Josh and I went out and met with the Stanfield Unitarian Brethren. They're 100% behind us on this. They want to see this happen. They know the importance of getting this into our community. The other thing we wanted to do when we formed this committee was to make sure if we did it as a community project, and we all know how generous this community is, to make sure that we give our individuals and business owners tax-deferred donation status with their donations. And in planning this, we reached out to Made to Thrive. We could have started our own nonprofit to pull this off, But Made to Thrive gives us two things that's super important. Their mission and commitment to youth in our community, things that you folks were just talking about. We hope that these fields can prevent them drugs and alcohol and other problems down the road. And Chris's vision is very similar to what we want to do. We want to bring more green space to Hermiston. We want to bring lit fields to Hermiston. We want to bring a facility that is the crown jewel. So when you give tours to people from outside the area, they go up there and see this facility, just like they talk about our aquatic center, just like they talk about our hospital, our schools, the Funland Park, everything. This is right in line with that. And I want you to know, even though we only started 4 months ago, we've spent a lot of time and researched this to make sure that we're making it the crown jewel of Hermiston. I should add too, I feel like our committee members, we're really smart folks. Young thought of Heroes, which is Hermiston, Oregon Sports Club. So, thank you. We appreciate that. My click button on the side. All right, here we go. So as you can see on the screen, the field is designed to be kind of along the entrance road into EOTech. Right now it's nothing but cheatgrass and looks like kind of a scene from the Great Depression. Our goal next year at this time is that's going to be solid green. We're not going to shape or slope the fields. It's just going to be straight green. Green grass with lights is our goal, if we can reach our number. From an irrigation standpoint, that's always been the question. We looked at going in-ground sprinklers. Unfortunately, the cost of PVC right now is at an all-time high. Additionally, having multiple sprinklers in the ground up there presents maintenance issues for soon to be the city staff that is going to maintain EOTech. So we're going to go with a big gun system. So kind of along the parking lot, we'll bring a pipe through the road and then bring it all the way down to the south, kind of where it says after. 3 risers along the bottom fence line. And we're going to use a big gun reel system to irrigate it. Each pass takes about 3 hours, so the city would be able to get it watered in a day. In a 9-hour shift, we can get it watered. Also, the wind tends to blow a little bit around here. So really on the windy days, we only have to water for 6 hours because it's just going to be watering the asphalt road on the way in. The city's already put up or said they'd be willing to help us from a funding standpoint of at least $100,000, and we have a lot of other donors that's very excited to get this pulled off. Our donor wall, kind of top section along that top right field, kind of where the asphalt ends, and we'll get into more of that a little bit later, but that is kind of our concept and our design. I'm going to turn it to Josh to kind of talk about what we modeled this after, which is the Sozo Sports Complex up in Yakima.
Before I begin, Mayor and council members, I also want to say we appreciate Byron for his help with this. We've had to lean on him multiple times for insight from the city perspective, as well as Al and his team out at EOTech for just providing information that otherwise we wouldn't have, and we wouldn't be this far in the project. As far as what we modeled our plans after, I'm not sure if any of you have visited the Sozo facility in Yakima, but it is fantastic. I couldn't, unfortunately, find a great overhead view of their facility, but I did happen to find a map that they use. You can see their advertisements on the side for parking books, which is something we should definitely consider, charging for parking to help offset the cost of this and the maintenance. But up in Yakima, they took farm fields and they created this, for lack of a better word, a sports-centered facility where it's immaculate. The fields are incredibly well maintained. It's laid out very intentionally. When you show up there, and we've been a number of times for lacrosse tournaments, when you show up there, the parking is easy. Everything is intuitive as far as here's where you're going, there's maps. And what I would like each of you to please vision with me, all right, we're going to take a little imaginary trip to EOTech a year from now or 2 years from now with the heroes in place. when we pull into Sozo, it's not uncommon at a, what I would say is a medium-sized lacrosse tournament, 40 or 50 teams, for 7,000, 8,000 people to be at that facility. And vendors lined up and down those driveways. There's a big center area there that's gray, and it's packed with, different, food trucks, coffee tents, T-shirts, you name it. And, depending on how you look at it, as a father, when we show up there and the kids are like, ooh, I want to buy that, I want to buy that, it's not exactly my favorite place. But for those vendors, it's a great thing. They've got a captive audience of 8,000 folks in between games, waiting on something to do. And we picture this for EOTech. And I can't wait to head down that main entrance and see everything lined up out there, the fields pristine and ready for competition, whether that's a soccer tournament or 7-on-7 football or flag football or lacrosse. And really, we're just talking a few sports. I'm certain that there's a lot of other things that we can use that space for once we have the grass in place and the fields and lights. So please don't just let us limit the conversation to the sports we're talking about today. The other thing I want to say is, and we mentioned Made to Thrive, and we're extremely grateful that they allowed us to them for this project. This isn't just a tournament facility. While I'm taking you on the imaginary trip that excites me greatly to see all of those people in Hermiston for tournaments and all of those people paying for hotel rooms and all of those people buying restaurant dinners and contributing to our local economy, as excited as I am about that, also very excited just space for sports in our facility. It is not uncommon for teams to almost literally be fighting for practice fields, especially in the spring when there's multiple sports that are overlapping. It's a challenge. It's an incredible challenge to find room for programs to be out and have space for their kids. Thing that I'm really excited about is this isn't limited to just youth sports. There are adults in our community that enjoy playing intramural sports, so to speak. And so there's just a lot of potential for this. So I appreciate you going on that imaginary trip. And I just ask you, as we're talking through this, to keep that in mind. All of those people lined up and all of those cars paying $5 a car to get in, going to be a big impact from an economic standpoint to our community, as well as space for our kids to have those opportunities. Did you have a question?
So while we're going on this journey with you,
Yes.
green space is notoriously unfriendly towards those that require sticks and wheels to get about.
Okay.
So if you could add in bits about how this will be accessible, because Special Olympics is really big around here, and
Absolutely.
I can see them using these facilities, but if it's not accessible, we're not going to get much use out of that. So if you could feed in bits about that, I'd be really interested to hear that.
Councilor Peterson, I appreciate that question, and just to level with you, that's not something up to this point we've even discussed. So I appreciate that call out, and I don't believe there's anything in our plan that would prevent us from being able to have that accessibility, especially since we haven't started yet and we still have time to work around what that would look like. So thank you for that call out. I appreciate it. The pictures that you see there, those are from Sozo, and I wish I could have found a picture of like way looking on the crowds going. The last tournament we were at, they actually had a drone flying around capturing images of all of the folks there, but my limited Google skills didn't turn that up. If you wanted to go research on your own, you can Google Sozo. There's some great YouTube videos of what they've put together there also. So we've talked about it, but just to remind everyone, our goal is this is an 18-acre regional, and it's important I use the word regional because it's, yes, going to be located in Hermiston, and this is a community project of ours, but we certainly see the surrounding area being able to use this and benefit from this as well. We want to have this thing, like Luke said, going next spring, ready for games. And that's going to take a lot of work, but we feel like we have the committee in place and folks who are chomping at the bit ready to make it happen. And again, why? It's almost intuitive, but we'll mention it. We want a safe place for kids to play. We want healthy athletic activities and plenty of green space where we're not having to fight with one another to have those opportunities. And then we want to be able to host regional tournaments. Speaking of regional tournaments, Luke mentioned our supporters here tonight, folks from the recently graduated lacrosse. This is working, but it's coming in and out. We're extremely proud of Vinny and Carson, and we really have a lot of momentum in our lacrosse program right now. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of that, but they made it to the state playoffs for our Washington Athletic Association and just crushed it. They did a phenomenal job this year. Coach Arnold here supporting those guys as well. So wanted to call that out, but this isn't just a lacrosse project, so I need to say that. I'm just really happy to see all the folks here tonight supporting us. Let's talk about these regional tournaments. We try to a number of them each year. Your tournaments, we've got some statistics up there. Those come from a study that was provided to the school district by a consulting firm. They actually did research on this. Luke and I making up numbers. If we were to make up the number, it would have been $904 because traveling around for these tournaments. We feel like the $904 per family is, I would say, very conservative. Can you guys hear me now? Yeah, the green light was on, so I assume. All right. You know, I think a very conservative figure is $1.2 million annually to our local economy, and I can't help but be excited about that. And then the last bullet point that you see there is 83% of tournament attendees spend money on something locally, and you have to. When you're there for a weekend and you have games all day Saturday and Sunday, most of the time, I shouldn't say you have to, I guess some people are just very well prepared and bring a cooler full of stuff, but most families are going to make some purchases in the local area, and we want our local business folks to be able to see the benefits of that. And if you take a look at that map, you've got the northern section of California, Nevada. Folks travel for kids' sports. Many of you have done that, I'm sure, with your families. And we're no different, and we would just like to see that opportunity here in our community.
Okay, now I'm hitting the laser. There we go. All right, cost and timeline, like Josh said earlier, we're hoping to have this thing done and ready to go by next spring. I know that's quick, but really it's dirt, water, and grass when we break it down, so we can get it done. Lighting is a big cost. The question's been raised, and just to get it out there, our go, no-go figure, whether or not we can do this and maybe not do all the lighting or whatever, is about 1.4, 1.5 million. Costs just keep changing all the time, as everybody knows, with COVID and supply chain issues. But our initial plan is to go out and hit some of our big donations first, not collect any of the money, but get them to pledge that money. And once we hit that number, we know we can go. And then the fellow committee members will keep working to hit our 2.6 million. And as far as our budget goes, I mean, we've got lawnmowers and tractors and side-by-sides to pull the reel around, and just everything we can think of. Netting. If Carson Bradshaw or Vinny threw a lacrosse ball and it didn't hit the goal and it hit your car's probably totaled. So we've got netting on the fields and everything else. So we've tried to break that down so it's really simple, but again, our goal is to get that done by the spring, if you so vote and approve it. Donor.
All right. So $2.6 million seems like a very large sum because it is a very large sum. And when we're talking about grass fields, you look at that and you say, how in the world are you going to spend $2.6 million just to have fields out there? It's not just about the fields. It's about lighting. It's about those nets Luke was talking about. It's about creating a very quality environment that people are excited to come back to and look forward to. We want teams from around the region to say, oh yeah, we're headed to Heroes at Hermiston this weekend, and know how great the facilities are going to be when they get there. So we have donor levels established when we go out and attempt to raise these funds. And if you're looking at that and you're saying $100,000, who in the world is going to donate that? This is an amazing community, and I know all of you are aware of that. I know when it came time to raise the funds for the new Funland, Luke was part of that committee, and we needed $1 million to be able to rebuild the park. And in about 3 weeks, this community stepped up and said, we'll pledge that, go build the park. And look at it today. We see the same thing happening with this. As we've talked to potential donors and members of the community, the word we've received is, don't limit it at only $50,000. Say $100,000 and above, and you might even want to have a level above that. We kept it conservative, but we are looking forward to getting out and doing the work and raising these funds. We, again, tried to keep it sports themed, so you can see our cute icons there that represent each other level. And one thing I want to mention is we greatly appreciate the Bank of Eastern Oregon stepping up and saying, hey, if folks want to pledge this across multiple years for those higher levels, if it's $15,000, they'll spread that across 3 years. If it's greater than that, they'll spread that across 5 years. So that's an awesome opportunity for the bank to allow us to be able to go out and quote unquote sell that to folks when we're trying to convince them this is a worthy project. But it's something that our donors can benefit from as well, from being able to spread that across from a tax-deferred standpoint. Luke mentioned our donor wall. So this is actually a picture of the current EOTech wall. We want our donor wall to match. We want it to sync up with what we already have going on out at EOTech. The one difference is going to be, again, keeping in the sports theme. For those highest level donors, you can see those black pennant flags up there. When you make that donation, you'll be granted one of those flags that's going to stand next to the American flag. They're not going to be nylon flags that are going to tatter and weather with our weather out here. We're going to have those cut out of metal and shaped into like a pennant, so it's a durable and lasting recognition for those folks who've made those donations. And then again, we showed the different levels of what's going to happen on that wall for the different levels of donations. So like I said, we're excited to go out and try and raise these funds. We look forward to your yes vote. And with that, we'll open it up to any questions.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate your presentation. Any of the young men or women want to speak this evening about this?
I think we promised them if they came, they didn't have to.
Yeah, public speaking is not a subject that...
They might take longer than us.
Yeah. So Al, Al, can you come up for a second? I have several questions, and maybe you can help answer those at the same time, and they can kind of fill in those pieces a little bit. So what do you think about this project, and does it kind of fit in with what we're doing up there? So just so the public is aware, Al is our managing director up at EOTech. So how does this line up with the strategic plan and the vision for EOTech?
If you look back at our strategic plan, one of the things, the very first thing in that strategic plan is water. I think that's the very number one thing in the strategic plan, securing water. And then I think that's followed up by greening up spaces such as the entrance to EOTech and some of that. So with the pipeline and the water that they'd be bringing up the driveway, which the guns that they're talking about would go out, that'd give us an opportunity to really green up the front of our building, light stuff up. There will also be power. I'm assuming there's power because there's going to be power going up there. So it's going to give us some options and some stuff there, and still staying within our strategic plan. I outside of watching them play lacrosse at sunset when I'm driving home, that's about all I know about lacrosse. But I did do I called Zozo, and I talked with them a little bit about it. Their numbers seem pretty accurate. I mean, I think if they can do that, and we could do some tournaments in here, I think it's definitely a positive. There is no, they mentioned it earlier, there is no recession in youth sports. Just a couple weeks ago, just a sidebar, I was at a gas station in Boise, and the lady beside me was pumping gas into a Yukon. And I kind of made a joke at it because gas prices are extremely high. I said, man, I'm glad I don't have to drive that. And her statement to me was, you ought to be glad your kids aren't in lacrosse. and I thought, okay. And I asked her why. And I said, why is that? And I kind of funny, she named off all the states that were up there, and her kids have been at every one of those tournaments just about, because she named off all those states of those dots. And I was like, wow. So I got into talking to her about it a little more, and it's definitely a growing sport, and it's going, and it's going to expand. And, you know, I've always said from the very one, you know, we're in the middle of nowhere, but we're in the center of everything. I think that youth sports, Hermiston struggles for an identity sometimes, I think, when there's one really right in front of us, and that's competition. If you think of what happens in this community for the AAU basketball, and just this past week, the baseball, and the wrestling, and the barrel racing, and all the other stuff that happens, people like to come to Hermiston. And they like to come spend their money, because we're center. We got 84, 82, easy access, in and out. They really enjoy that. So I think it does fit within our vision. Right now, as we get ready to gear up for, you know, fair, you know, we all know, we've all had that discussion, we've had that open discussion about what's got to happen to that lot during fair time. We all know we're perfectly aware of what's going to take to bring it up hard and have to take the water and have to go back and put it back together after that, and do the roadway maybe later that fall. So yeah, I think it's very well. And it's based really that in most of our plans, this has really been, this isn't a new conversation. I think that first came in 18, Scott Purcell hit me, hey, we're thinking about this. And then COVID got everything kind of go back order and some of that stuff. And you guys came here a couple months ago and started to bring that up again. It's a past question. It's a past that will pay for itself really quickly. Since I have a mic, I think that's one other thing I have to say. Sports, and that is that this past weekend, Hermiston girls softball was on ESPN. And then Sunday, about their quarterfinals of the World Series softball. Wednesday they play, if you want to plug in because it's rare, they were in EOTech practicing. So sports is not something new to us. Not only do these rodeo chapter are all different companies, our facilities, different things. They play Wednesday at 4. So, but yeah, I think youth sports is something that Hermiston is very good at. They know how to do it, they know how to do it at a high level. I sat in the back and I thought about making my comment earlier, and I heard what you guys have to say about what's happening in your neighborhood. And some of that is just we haven't been able to keep the using them. Green space is a problem, volunteers is a problem, all kinds of other problems. Some of the problems that happen in the neighborhood. But this is definitely one way to take a step in the right direction. I don't know if it's coming out of the project music, soccer music, like football that music. Pretty good step toward it. So that's a pretty good number for us to try and get this down the street and get some stuff positive into it.
So one other thing, Al, while you're standing there, you know, the EOTech facility originally was a community facility to help facilitate the rodeo and fair. This would be an additional responsibility of EOTech. And so along with this donation, this would be amazing, there's some responsibility that comes along with that. So including things like field maintenance and management and who's going to take care of all of that and how's that going to be funded. And I'm sure you've kind of talked through all that stuff already, and who's going to be doing all that kind of yeoman's work of the care of the fields and all that sort of stuff. So part of the partnership with the fair and the rodeo is they make financial contributions for the use of those facilities. Is your organization, Luke and Josh, going to be contributing, renting the facilities, paying for some of that field maintenance? I mean, or is that something the city is going to have to bear moving forward?
So our plan is with the parking. So like we talked about before, when there are tournaments, and in talking to our soccer community, they feel very confident that they can host 5 tournaments a year, and I believe the cross that's just those. You talk about 7-on-7, ambassador soccer program, whatever else it might be. When you have those tournaments, you charge $5 to $10 a car. Again, modeling after Sozo, 2019 Sozo's final tax return, their soccer program contributed to $305,000. The field rentals and operations for various other activities was $174,000. And the tournament revenue is almost $72,000. We look at just the fees for parking, it's looking at like about $52,000 will be collected just from those tournaments that I mentioned to help maintain these fields. One of the questions we did ask Mandy Byron was to make sure in their budget, once the fields are built, that part of those parking fee revenues go back to maintain these fields. Because we really don't want to build something 2 years from now that we want this again to be a crown jewel. So to answer your question, that is our plan as far as that goes. I'm sure we'll work with Al on when tournaments come into town, a rental situation where we rent it. But we also use the tournaments to help raise money for our club and buy gear for kids that can't afford it and stuff like that. And that's when
And Luke, your organization would do all the managing of the tournaments. It wouldn't be an additional responsibility that Al would have to take on, right? You guys would kind of organize and run and.
Our tournaments, yes. So
Yeah.
we had 2 lacrosse tournaments. Hermiston Youth Lacrosse would take those on. We've had Battle of the Youth for years. We would add another one in August nights or whatever to have it. We would assume the same for soccer. And if Al wanted to build a different tournament schedule, having city staff do it all, it costs this much. You just want us to turn on the lights and have the fields ready. The cost would be charged this much. That's kind of the plan right now.
And then how about Al organizing? That's a big facility, right? So if they bring in a couple thousand people like they're talking about, do we have the parking, and how does that coincide with other events and venues that are going on up there?
That's just scheduling.
Yeah.
An event, as they're talking about the size that they're talking about, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and if I go far, you guys can pull me back in. If they bring a tournament in, I am going to make the assumption that they're not just on that lot. I foresee campers coming in. I presume we're going to see other spaces that we're going to use. One of the things that, I think we do have that big event center, having team space in there. I don't know if you guys were outside today, but it was hot. But at a tournament like this, where you can bring people inside and give them air conditioning and comforting and something that's not a porta potty, that's all stuff that we add to the table. As we grow and we look and see what this starts to look like, Geotech is a big facility. Now that off-road is paved, someone would come in and say, hey, I would like to do a barrel race or roadway. There's got to be some conversation. They can very easily come in on the off-road entrance, park in the back, without access to the arena. Now you can protect happening on the top. We do stuff like that all the time where people come in and maybe just like he's saying, they're parked on the Geotech Event Center side, and the barrel races are all on the other side. So we're accustomed to having split up parking, some of that stuff. If the size gets big enough, the point, it's great to have it big enough that people show up and they're parked everywhere. I'm assuming that people come in with stay the night. Tournament starts probably on a Friday, goes through Sunday, and people stick around. I don't, it's just scheduled.
Perfect. Did you guys want to add anything else to that? Questions from the council? Yes, Ms. Myers.
You estimate would be the cost of upkeep on fields like that? per year, per month, however you want to cut it?
You know, the biggest expense really is going to be the water. I mean, of course, I say that with the thought that, remember, fertilizer is a petroleum product.
Right.
So as the price of petroleum goes up, the price of fertilizer goes up.
Mhm.
I do like the gun system. We have a smaller version of it that we use a lot. We use all of the ground. I think that's the right answer. And then that'll cut out some of the underground sprinklers and some of that work. They're easy. You pull them out, they want to plug back in, you pull it out again, they want to plug in. So that's a big deal. I don't know, but I can get you an answer. I have an agronomist on my staff now, so we can probably tell me whatever it costs to fertilize that. As it is now, that field that he calls cheatgrass, I like to call it every we already spray that field 2 or 3 times a year, so that type of maintenance is already in our budget. The only thing that's really we added in our budget would probably be fertilizer, probably I'm assuming striping and stuff like that. That's all up to you, what the cost of some of that stuff. The only thing that adds to our budget is fertilization and
Mowing. So, Mr. Morgan, any idea, have you put together a budget what this facility is going to cost to maintain annually?
I didn't have that. That was with City Manager Smith. So.
Okay. All right. So we don't have that answer this evening. How about other questions? Yeah, Councilor Spicer-Coon?
So I guess the plan here is that during non-tournament, non-event weekends, this would just be generally kept open to the public. How would we maintain safety? What kind of access is the public going to have to this facility?
Thank you for that question. Our thought on that is that it would still require scheduling with EOTech. So we don't foresee folks just showing up to go, kick the ball around, spend the afternoon, unless that is pre-coordinated with Al and his team. To your point, it's a big open space, and it may not be something that the city wants people just, because it's not in a central location and not very visible. So let folks schedule that, but it would still be available if scheduled.
Would they have to pay any cost for doing that?
I don't know what the cost would be. Our current policy is we don't just leave the facility open now. We lock the gates every night, put it up. But if somebody calls and says, hey, I would like to come up and do an open ride tonight, we've come up with a fee structure. We organize to have the gates open. We have somebody there, even if it's just one person, because we can always keep somebody busy for a couple hours. And if someone says, hey, I would like to come up and have soccer practice, can I bring my team up? Yeah, here's the cost per hour. During this time of year where you don't have to have lights on, probably a little cheaper than when you get into the fall and some of the spring years where it's a little darker, it gets darker earlier, you might have to turn lights on. There's probably a fee structure that probably needs to go with that to make that happen. But I think the important part is that groups have to have buy-in to it. They got to have skin in the game. I like that we see other groups, not just lacrosse here, we see soccer and some other groups here. So it's just setting up a time and a schedule and saying, hey, we would like to be here on this night, and for me to say, okay, this is my cost to have a staff person at $20 an hour, and you're going to be here for 2 hours. It's going to cost you $60. Don't do the math on that.
The problem I see with that is most of the people that are going to be looking for that feel on the weekend are like the AYSO moms or dads and coaches who need practice space, and they're scrounging around for city parks and school spaces because they can't afford to go up there and
right now, or most of the year, we're there every weekend. So we usually have somebody around the grounds, and if somebody's around the grounds, the gates will probably be open. We haven't really talked about it much on how we're going to schedule that out.
So I've coached grid kids, I've coached AYSO, I've coached lacrosse, I've coached AAU basketball. When you're part of these organizations, you have a coaches meeting, and you dedicate where you're going to practice. So you're not racing to the field, not racing to Theater Park at 5:30 and trying to get there at 5:29 so you can have that field. So we would assume the same thing would happen here. If EOTech opens it up during the week, all right, hey, we could have 6 teams practice up there or whatever. Lacrosse, we would like to have 3 practices a week up there, starting in mid-March all the way through probably the end of June. Do we need every field? No, but we'd like to have at least half of them. So it would be, I think, just a scheduling issue. We practice now for lacrosse at Sandstone. We provide a porta potty, so we're not, you know, getting into the school or any of that stuff. Our club buys that, so that's kind of the same goal, I would say. So it's not open all the time to the public, but it's a scheduled item to utilize the facility that our community has raised the money for.
And I know each of the clubs, when my kids were playing as well, we were part of associations, and I know that each of them, we paid club fees, and they kind of used that sort of money to help offset some of those costs. All the facilities, like the basketball facilities, this is a community facility. It was intended to be a community facility. It was paid by the city and all the community donors, and so it's not intended to be a money maker for the city. But at the same point, we are taking on an additional responsibility and trying to offset those costs. Our budgets aren't getting any bigger either, and so we can't add on additional services if we can't afford them. And so making sure that, you know, we can offset those costs. Nobody's looking to get rich here on this thing, but you're right. This is Hermiston's tourism attraction, is youth sports, and they've done a great job at that, and that's what draws us to that because of our location and proximity throughout the Northwest. And I think it could be a very valuable resource and asset to our community. So I'm super supportive of it and excited about it. I know Councilor Peterson, yeah. Councilor Peterson, you got a question?
So I'm wondering if perhaps the scheduling could be something that could be put online where people would be able to then, like how you can go and reserve a camping spot for like a state camp. I mean, I've done that several times. I've even reserved like a spot over at Hat Rock, and that way you can see, okay, well, here are the spots that are open, here are the times they're available, here's the price associated, and then that way you can have a menu of services and you can see what you're getting for how much and what it's located near and what's accessible in what location, and have it menued out, and then that way we have that complete transparency and people can plan ahead.
Yeah, Councilor Brown.
Just want to thank you, Luke, and Josh, and everybody in your committee that put this work together. When this presentation was made at EOTech, one of the questions I had as a counselor was knowing how much time was put into this prior for it to be presented. And it was quite obvious that they've worked very, very hard for long hours and had various meetings with different stakeholders to make this come to fruition. And so as a counselor, I did have that question, I did have that doubt. But after meeting several times with the committee and speaking to these gentlemen up here, I'm very confident what they're doing is not only a benefit to the community, but it's being done the right way. One of the things as counselors we do want to make sure is that things are done the right way, even if sometimes it takes a little bit slower. I am very confident in their ability and in the committee that they formed to make this plan come to fruition. Adding with that, I believe a thank you is also in order for all the people that have helped. I know Fred Carlson and Dustin have also offered and volunteered a lot of services. When it comes to putting these kind of events together, it really is all hands on deck, and these gentlemen right here are the people to really put this together. So I want to thank you personally. I want to thank everybody that's here and every person that made it here. Clearly it shows that it's an important thing for you guys in the community. The reason why people come to city council meetings is most of the time because there is an issue or because there's something going on that's affecting their livability. So it's really great to see that everybody is here for various reasons, but it's all because they have community in mind. They want livability to be first and foremost in our community. So I thank you again, and I think what they've put forth in the EOTech meeting that we've had is very solid.
Other comments, questions from the council? Yes, youth advisors, please. Jalissa.
Hi, sorry. I just think that this project is a really nice thing. It just shows how much our community is growing and how much movement is going on. We're gonna be on maps now because of this. This is gonna be putting us on schedules for kids like tournaments. Parents are gonna see it and they're gonna be like, oh, what's this place? They're gonna be booking hotel rooms. They're gonna be seeing, oh, it's a good place to get breakfast on Sunday. And I like it because it just shows how much our community is growing, how much the town is being recognized, and how many opportunities we're opening up for so many kids and parents.
Very good. Thank you, Jalissa. Manuel, did you have something you wanted to add?
So, I do like all the ideas for the parks, like that. This is really great, but I understand it's really hard. Like sometimes we can't shift everything onto one subject, but I do want to at least I at least want to see something done about people getting invaded in their homes. Like honestly, we shouldn't be worrying about this, and I don't want some parts of our town to become like Portland, because some parts of Portland are really bad, and I do not want that to happen here. And I understand that you guys are gonna do whatever you can and best of your abilities, but I think that should also be a good point to focus on, because we should also care about how our people will live in this community, and not just the maybe visitors that are going to come to maybe see our new field on EOTech. So I wanted that to also be a good focus on that.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for those comments and your thoughts. Councilor Barone, you had another comment?
It just kind of came to me a little bit more when I was seeing the plaque and where a lot of the community awareness was going, kind of back a little bit to the strategic plan. I know that the entrance was going to be maybe changed, so I don't know if that's just going to change a little bit of where you guys want to put that plaque, or maybe it's just more work with Al, but it was just food for thought. It's not really anything that's going to hold up my decision or not, but it's just something to think about. Look forward to talking about the details much down the line. Thank you.
Any final comments, gentlemen? Yeah, Councilors.
I just want to say thank you for your presentation, and it's great to see members of the community who can have a vision and have the wherewithal to go out and act on that vision and find this kind of funding and put this kind of project together. But I do want to add, I think bathrooms should be included in there. I mean, I remember discussing this a little bit and discussing porta potties, but really there's only one hard bathroom site that's really going to be accessible by this, and there probably should be another solid bathroom with running water. And
We agree with you, and bathrooms are critically important. And we've priced out not, I would say, portable restrooms, but the very nice model that are on like a trailer that can be towed around, and are not porta potties. But you walk in, there's sinks, there's that kind of facility. So we've priced those out, have included those in the budget, and would want to offer those to the city for these types of events. Good call out. Thank you.
Perfect. So the action, what are we looking for this evening?
Yes, so I don't know how urgent. I mean, obviously, I think the group would like to get moving as quickly as possible. You know, obviously, things need to move very quickly, even in order to hit the next couple of years. But I think there's really kind of three potential motions that are outlined in your staff report. You know, one is just to direct staff to move forward as quickly as possible with the field development. The other one would be to offer any modifications that you'd like to see while still requesting that staff works to move forward, or if there's some major changes that you have any consternation about, you could now's the time to let us know and maybe ask us to come back at a future meeting.
Okay, how'd the council? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts would be to move forward, but as to comments that Councilor Peterson said, just the inclusion of making it more inclusive for all people. But I think that would be the only modification I would suggest.
Okay. Anybody else have a different suggestion?
It's not really a modification, but I would like to keep up on this, like, regular
Updates.
reports on this so that we know what's going on. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, so you got a trigger point, right? What was it, 1.2? 1.4. Okay, so at that point, you'll come and talk to us and say, hey, we've met this goal, we're moving forward. Or we haven't met this goal, we're not moving forward. You'll keep us informed. Yeah, Councilor Peterson?
And to tie into what my fellow counselor said, when you do find these specific, accessible aspects, I mean, that's a selling point by itself, because people want to know that they're going to be able to come to a place and bring everybody, that no one's going to, be left at home because, well, you can't get on the grass with your chair, or your walker's not going to do that well, and that's not okay. And so if we can highlight those, and I would like to see those mapped out of like, okay, well, we added a little bit to the budget because we have this kind of walkway going in this direction.
Right, a travel path.
Yeah, yes. Because all we see is green, and it's like, oh, that's gonna be hard, even if, and also maybe a place to sit every so often, because not everyone can walk that far. So if this is going to be a place for everyone, then we have to take that into account.
How about, what's that? Yeah, Julissa, did you have another comment?
I was wondering, since a lot of families would be going to these tournaments and they're coming from out, they don't know the place, would there be a possibility that we could add in an area where like lost children or like parents missing their kids could go or like meet up with them? Just like a little beacon area where it's safe, with a camera maybe, just in case like anything happens to them. Because I know that me personally, I were to get in a foreign city, I would get terrified, like traumatized almost. So is there a possibility for that, or maybe plans of that?
That's a very responsible question, and I love where your mind's at on that, so thank you. We will, on somewhere around our donor wall, have a map of all the different layout. Here's which field is which. And so to your point, I foresee, maybe that safe area being located in that spot, or at that location directed to the EOTech office. If you're missing a child, here's where you go, someone's on staff there, and here's how we get that word out to everyone that's coordinating the tournament. Thank you. Oh, Luke just mentioned, and we have budgeted for a PA system as well, so that if we need to make announcements to the crowd at large, we can do that.
Does that tie in? Al, we've got a system up there currently that covers the facility, auditory.
And
Yeah.
once we get the power and that stuff, because right now, we can do the whole grounds out through the barns and in the rodeo in case of emergency, weather or whatever that would be. Currently, we have a procedure during for fair and road.
Very good. How about public comment about this evening? Any others like to speak to it? No? Got to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself again. Sorry, these dang rules.
I just remember
Your
seeing a lot
name?
of faith.
Tasha Wortman. Workman. Okay. Tasha Workman. Okay, thank you. About you're talking about the neighbors. Oh, okay. Yeah, we try to keep, Al went and sat down. We tried to keep communication with the neighbors and let them know what's going on. And I think we have a pretty positive relationship with that neighborhood group up there right now. We've been able to, yeah. All right, any other public comment? Yeah, please.
And do you guys budget for shade? Any type of shade? Because during fair, it's hot, and there's no trees up there compared to our old fairgrounds. So like my big complaint would be shade.
Yeah.
So we do have, I forget the exact number, but like 16 different shade tents. And those will be put on the field mostly for the scorekeepers and referees and stuff like that. Usually at all these tournaments, the teams that you're traveling with, you get 4 or 5 shade tents that you put up, and the common area where the carnival is, that's where you'd set up, and so you'd have your shade tents up, and if the kids have a 3-hour delay between games or whatever, they go up there and sit. If it's going to be practices, you're going to be kind of in and out. If it's a hot day, probably wouldn't schedule it, or we can bring some of those shade tents out just for a cooling station depending upon the weather. But we do not have plans for
Councilor Peters.
I'm just wondering if that would be something that perhaps we could put on, like if we were to build a website where it's like if people are reserving, that would be something that they could also reserve. And, you know, if we, you know, perhaps invested in getting some of those.
Rental?
And then, yeah, and then they could rent them from us. And then that way it's like, okay, that would be part of, yeah. Yeah, and just to, yeah. Yeah, and I'm just thinking, yeah, and even just for like the local teams, it's like, hey, we'd like to have, it's going to be really hot that day, but no one else is using it. And then that way they could just rent it locally, and as opposed to having to go out and like grab their own for just that one time. Well, you need to invite me.
Yeah.
You can find me
Yeah.
on the website.
I was at a venue recently, and they rented chairs, and I picked up my chair. It was like a $5 rental. I left it when I left. I didn't have to carry it in. I didn't have to take it out. It's $5. They kept the chair. It's a fundraiser for them too. So, anyway, not a bad idea. Have a shade rental fundraiser. Anyway, we're getting distracted. We'll let you fix lacrosse and soccer, and we'll do the city stuff here. What would the council like to do moving forward?
Move that the council move forward with the plan with some emphasis on accessibility for the people.
Okay.
Second.
So there's been a motion by Councilor Spicer-Coon to move forward with field development project as outlined to include some accessibility considerations, and it's been seconded by Councilor Barone. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, gentlemen. Yeah. So congratulations, everybody that's helping to work on this. We appreciate you. It's because of individuals like yourselves that contribute to our community, that are willing to donate your time, money, sweat, equity, that this is the greatest community to live in. So we appreciate all your time and effort that you're putting into this, and we know it's going to be a fabulous project, and it's going to generate some revenue for the community, but have great spaces to keep kids out of trouble, and more opportunities for kids to develop and the community to use as well. So thank you very much for your time and effort. All right, we're going to move on to the rest of our meeting. Kids, you can stick around if you want. It's going to get really boring from here. Thank you. All right, so we're on to a public hearing. So annexation, Pena 120 East Oregon Avenue and 1650 Northeast North Street, 4N 280, 2CB, tax lots 5400 and 5500. Are there any declarations of conflict from the council? Seeing none, can I get the hearing guidelines presented by the staff?
The applicable substantive criteria
Can't hear
relied
you.
upon. Nothing?
Can't hear you. No. Yep.
Well, we'll try yelling into
There
it.
you go.
The applicable substantive criteria relied upon by the city in rendering the decision to annex the property are contained in 150105 of the Hermiston Code of Ordinances. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the criteria described above or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulations, which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue by the close of the record at or following the hearing in person or by letter precludes appeal to LUBA based on that issue. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to LUBA based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity. I think the battery went down completely on me. The City Council shall grant such a request by continuing the public hearing pursuant to ORS 197-763-6B, or leaving the record open for additional written evidence, arguments, or testimony pursuant to ORS 197-763-6C. For this hearing, the process begins with the staff report, followed by testimony from the applicants and any other supporters of the application. This will be followed by opponents to the application. Finally, a rebuttal by the applicant will be allowed. The public hearing portion of the procedure will then be closed, and the City Council will consider the information and testimony received, adopt findings of fact, and render a decision on annexation.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. The hearing is now open. City staff will present its report.
Tonight, the City Council is holding a hearing to consider a request for annexation that was submitted by Jesus Pena for property he owns at 120 East Oregon Avenue and 1650 Northeast North Street. These are described as 4N2802CB, tax lots 5400 and 5500. Mr. Pena has requested annexation for an emergency sewer connection. He purchased this property in 1965. It's been under one owner for, well, longer than I've ever encountered a property in town. And when this property was originally developed back in 65, the city limits actually ended at Elm Street. And so that all of the area where we're looking up there in the Elwood and Hal Brandt tracts was developed as a county subdivision on small lots with septics. This lot has been continuously on a septic since 1965. In the intervening years, the city has come through with sewer and water in Oregon Avenue. And since he has a failed septic system and the utilities are within 300 feet, actually adjacent to the property, he is no longer allowed under state of Oregon rules to maintain a septic system and must tie on to the city's sewer. We have a condition of connecting that you must be in the city limits in order to receive city services, so that is why the annexation is proposed tonight. The property itself lies within the urban portion of our urban growth boundary, has the MH comprehensive plan designation, which corresponds to our R4 multi-structure residential zoning designation. There are 2 single-family dwellings on the property today. Like I said, they currently exist in the county. It is adjacent to 2 streets, East Oregon Avenue, which is a city street, which is partially improved, and then Northeast North Street, which is public right-of-way. It's neither a county road nor a city street. However, we are proposing that as a result of annexation, street improvement agreements would be signed for both the streets, East Oregon Avenue and Northeast North Street. Therefore, if an LID is ever formed to bring Northeast North Street up to a city standard, he would then be responsible for paying his share of that. It's very similar to what happened with the north side of Northeast North Street between East Oregon Avenue and East Theater Lane, also a public road, not a county road, not a city street. However, the paving that was on it was put down by the property owners several decades ago, and it finally deteriorated to the point that the city just stepped in and took care of it, even though at that time it wasn't a city street, but now we consider that portion a city street. This portion of Northeast North Street, south of East Oregon Avenue, we would foresee going the same way at some point in the future. The Planning Commission held a hearing on the annexation earlier this month and recommended unanimously that the council annex the property as proposed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spencer. We're going to now take public testimony. People wishing to speak are asked to state their name and mailing address and limit testimony to 5 minutes. Are there any proponents who would like to speak? Any neutral parties? Any opponents who wish to speak? Seeing none, the hearing is now closed. City staff will now present its findings of fact. Is that Mr. Spencer again? All right. Nope.
How about this one?
That one works.
Okay. On pages 65 and 66 of your staff report, you have the findings of fact that demonstrate compliance both with city code and state rules regarding the annexation of property to the city. All of the findings demonstrate that all of the requirements have been satisfied, and recommend approval as submitted.
Okay, thank you. How about other council discussion? Anything? So this is just kind of that area back behind Ixtapa that used to be county property, and we're kind of just onesie and twosieing them in, it seems like, over the last several years. As their sewer systems or water systems fail, they need to come on to city services, they've got to annex into the city. That's kind of the process that he's going through. Yeah.
That's correct. And this is also the area that we were working with the U of O students on potential, how could we potentially redevelop or encourage a higher level of development in the future. So this is an area that we're definitely focusing on. One of the things that Byron has tasked us with is actually looking into the state's revolving loan fund to see if we can get some of the sewer funded that way and possibly construct infrastructure, which would then be even more of an incentive to get the remaining properties to annex.
Nice. Yeah, that would be good. And this property abuts are right next to commercial development, so that road will actually feed into that development. Is that the intent?
Yeah, the road will be improved adjacent to this property.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions from the council? No. Can I get a motion to approve the findings of fact?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Davis, seconded by Councilor Harden, to approve the findings of fact. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. So now we're on to ordinance number 2339, the annexation of 120 East Oregon Avenue and 1650 Northeast North Street. Assistant Manager Morgan.
Yes, this ordinance is regarding the public hearing that you just held.
Okay. Mayor requests first reading of the ordinance be read by title only and calls for a roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Mr. Tubby?
Ordinance number 2339, an ordinance annexing certain real property approximately 260 feet east of North First Street, describing said real property, withdrawing said real property from special districts, and designating zoning.
Thank you. Mayor requests that the ordinance be put on for final adoption at this meeting and that the second reading be by title only and calls for a roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Tubby?
Second reading of ordinance number 2339, an ordinance annexing certain real property approximately 260 feet east of North First Street, describing said real property, withdrawing said real property from special districts, and designating zoning.
Thank you. Is there any public comment this evening about this process, this ordinance 2339? Seeing none, can I get a motion that ordinance number 2339 be adopted and become effective 30 days after adoption by the City Council?
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Harden, seconded by Councilor Davis, that that ordinance number 2339 be adopted and become effective 30 days after adoption. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Ordinance number 2340, declaring a ban on psilocybin service centers or manufacture of psilocybin in the city of Hermiston and referral to the electors. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, Council will remember that you had a very lengthy discussion at your last council work session to discuss this issue and give staff some direction on how you'd like to proceed. And so at that time, it was general consensus to have staff draft an ordinance to refer this item to the voters. And City Attorney Tuvey worked diligently on that, so I'd turn it over to him for any further instructions.
All right. Any other instructions, Mr. Tubby?
Nothing at this time. I will have just a short item once we've gone through the readings.
Okay, perfect. So the mayor requests first reading of the ordinance be read by title only and calls for a roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Mr. Tubby?
Ordinance number 2340, an ordinance declaring a ban on psilocybin service centers and the manufacture of psilocybin products and referral to the electors of the city of Hermiston for approval at the next statewide general election.
Okay, we'll get a second. Mayor requests that the ordinance be put on for final adoption at this meeting, that the second reading be by title only and calls for a roll call. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Mr. Tubby?
Second reading of ordinance number 2340, an ordinance declaring a ban on psilocybin service centers and the manufacture of psilocybin products and referral to the electors of the city of Hermiston for approval at the next statewide general election.
Okay. Did you want to speak now or after the public comment?
After.
Okay. Any public comment on ordinance number 2340? I know Councilor Barone had a question, concern.
I was not here for the last work session in which you guys discussed this in greater detail. So I don't really feel comfortable moving forward, yes or no. I might abstain with this one. However, I do have a question in terms of if this is going to be referred to the voters. Is there going to be voter education, or I guess is that something the city is going to be responsible or the state? Quite honestly, I don't know very much about this.
So as part of the ballot process, there will be a summary of the ballot title, and there's going to be an explanatory statement that will be put out. That'll be put in the voters pamphlet. But from there, that's probably as much as the city will do on education.
Because we can't go out as a
public
agency
body.
and either support or not support an issue or do too much propaganda. We can explain it, but that's about it. Right?
Well, and I think also it's good. I love that we stream all of our council meetings on YouTube now. They're archived. You can go back and watch them. And so I think city staff did a great job of explaining the issue and kind of why we have to do this. And one of the reasons that we have to do, or that council chose to proceed with this now, is we really only get about one shot at this, and it just has to be in order for banning the psilocybin service centers. You have to put it onto this ballot, and so it was, well, now's the opportunity for folks to have the chance to vote on it. I didn't get the sense that there was the city needs to be out there actively advocating or anything like that, but it required the city council to take some action to allow it to be on the ballot.
Yeah, I think at our last meeting, there's pretty strong consensus to support the issue. So it's not us making the decision. It's allowing the community to make the decision, kind of like we did with the marijuana.
Yeah, and I understand that it's probably going to be on the voter pamphlet, right, where it just presents the facts, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Peterson?
Thinking along those same lines, though, and wanting to, since we are presenting something to the voters, do you know if, like, the Oregon Health Authority or anything like that, if they are going to be putting anything on their website where we could say, like, people interested, and then, here's an additional government link, you can read further. And it's like, you can do your own research. Here's where to go do your own research. But that way, as opposed to just, here's a summary of what we're saying the summary is, but, here's what Oregon is saying also. Because it's coming down from Oregon, and we're saying we have to make a decision on this now. Based on what we know, and it's like, because
I think what would probably be appropriate is once we get into the fall, right up, around that time, we just need to schedule a time to put out some information on our website and through social media, just basically saying, hey, you're going to notice that this ballot is on this initiative is on the ballot, and guess what? We have a nice video that explains why it's there, and here's the link to our video that explains why this is on your ballot, and I think that would probably do plenty for most folks.
Any other questions by the council?
No, thank you very much, though.
Okay. So can I get a motion that ordinance number 2340 be adopted and become effective 30 days after the day on which it is approved by a majority of voters?
We're
You
missing
had
one
comment. Yes.
One counselor, right?
What's that?
We're missing one counselor.
Oh. Okay, gotcha. I'm sorry, I didn't even notice you left. Thank you for pointing that out. You said you had another comment too, Mr. Chovy, and I don't know that I allowed you to state something else.
I'm trying to think of what's that. No, we can point out that there is a correction of a copy that was received had a wrong ORS number.
Okay.
I wouldn't say go to a substantial change of our
Perfect.
of the document. So just as a note that it went from 275A to 475A.
Okay.
But,
so it'll be amended in the one that I sign.
Yeah,
Okay.
We'll have a clean copy for that. And then in looking at our charter, it is an issue as far as having Councilor Barone abstain, to have the ordinances completed at one council meeting. We do need to have everybody unanimous.
Okay.
So if we are going to have an abstention, then most likely this will need to be moved to the next council meeting for a reading.
Okay, perfect. I guess then you can decide what you're going to do, and we'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
Motion that ordinance number 2340 be adopted and become effective 30 days. Can I get a motion, please?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Been moved by Spicer Kuhn,
Second.
seconded by, was that Counselor Myers, that we approve motion, or we motion that ordinance 2340 be adopted and become effective 30 days after the day on which it is approved by a majority of voters. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. On to resolution 2235, Northwest
Mr.
3rd
Mayor,
Street.
I-
Yes.
so this is the time for the actual comment that I have. So as part of the process, and just to let the council know where we go from here, so getting through the ordinance process, now that the council has voted on that, the next step is to prepare a ballot title and notice that will then go into the paper for the next 7 days or so, allowing anybody in the community to comment on that ballot title. And if they have challenges to that, that'll go through the circuit court. But everybody should have received a copy of that. Part of the process is that the city attorney will provide it to the governing body as well as to our recorder. And so we have that out. That'll be going out the next time we get it in the paper, and we'll be moving forward.
So we have to put it out this early before the election in November?
I believe it was set, we have to have all of our part done by September 8th.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
that's why we're kind of moving
Yep.
through these meetings as we're doing it.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Chubby?
No, thank you. We are clear.
All right. We can move on now. All right. Resolution 2235, Northwest 3rd Street Roadway Improvements Contract Award. Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, so this was a squeaker, I guess you'd say. In our code, in our purchasing section of our code, we require city council approval for contracts like this over $150,000, and so we wanted to get it on the council agenda. The Anderson Perry's estimate for this work was about $140,000. So, but we wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to see this. Also, I wanted to make sure that you could see it because it's really an exciting project. So this is really all associated with our roadway construction project on North First Place that'll be occurring next year. Also with the fact that we'll be doing much more significant excavation for installing water and sewer utilities in North First. When we do that, it'll require full closures for relatively big chunks of time of North First Place, and so we needed a significant detour route during those times, and so that's Northwest 3rd, basically between Elm and Hermiston Avenue. But there's a small section of that that is gravel, and so what this contract will do is this fall we'll go in and just pave the travel lanes of that section of Northwest 3rd. And we did, you'll remember the funding for the Northwest First project is all state earmark funding, so there's no local match. ODOT did agree that this is basically required for the North First Place project to provide a detour, so it's fully funded by the state. And so this project has been one that it's been on our, in the appendix of our streets capital improvement plan for a long time. It's been, I know, a priority of a number of the councilors for many years to get the gravel roads paved throughout the city. But sometimes, you know, the ones that are left are the ones that, you know, just are kind of not super key critical arteries through the city. And so it just has been kind of challenging to prioritize those costs. And so I'm excited that we finally found an opportunity to get that paved and improve that entire area.
So if I understand the location of this road, this is right there by Rocky Heights, the new school runs north.
Yeah, it runs
where's
north-south.
Autobody.
Yep,
Gotcha.
yeah, basically like behind where's Autobody. It
Yeah.
parallels North First.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah, that's going to be good.
Yeah, I remember stumbling upon that road, and it
Yeah.
was pretty freaky. I didn't know. I thought I didn't know where I was anymore. I was like,
Mhm.
why is there gravel road all of a
Country.
sudden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Very good.
Okay. Any public comment about Resolution 2235? Nothing? Okay. Any other questions from the council? Can I get a motion to adopt Resolution 2235 awarding the Northwest 3rd Street roadway improvement contract to Tapani Incorporated and lay it upon the record?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned by Councilor Barone, seconded by Councilor Davis to adopt Resolution 2235. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. We've already completed 10A. We're going to move on to 10B. And I see Mr. K standing up there. Is he the one speaking to this one?
Yes.
All right. Fourth quarter investment report, Mr. K.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I want to start off by saying I don't like being wrong, but I was. A summary of what happened in the fourth quarter. I said last quarter is one of the worst quarters in the last 40 years. Fourth quarter topped it. Third quarter saw the portfolio down about 84 basis points. Fourth quarter went down a full 2.25%. But things are looking up. Things tend to lag what's going on in the market. It either goes slow because we're in this market as a small jurisdiction, and then we catch up. And when we go up, we follow that trend as well. That's where we're at. It's anticipated this week the Fed will raise their discount rate by 75 basis points to 2.5%. And their thought is that will be what they need to do to head off the recession. If it works, it's a great move the first quarter of fiscal 23. You'll see this in a moment. I went ahead and put all of our corporate bonds together in one classification just to try to make it easy for the council to understand what we're looking at. And as a point of reference, the one highlighted bond, the Bank of America for $100,000, you can see the coupon rate on that is 4.1%. If you look at a bunch of the other bonds going down that column, you'll see 1%, 1%, 2.85. We are going into a very robust market and are going to see better returns as things mature. But it's going to take a while. So I want you to be aware, yes, we took a hit in the fourth quarter, but I think we'll recover nicely over the next 2 quarters. That's the bond I was referring to. And here in our municipal bonds, everything is sitting fine there because those were good rates, which is why the council, in their wisdom, let me make the decision to put part of the portfolio in those bonds. They're still solid. There is a Federal Home Loan Bank investment we made for $100,000 at 2.7, and you can see the other Farm Home Loan Bank that was at 1%, but it's going to mature here pretty quick. I'm sorry, it's a no call. It matures in 25. That was just a safe play. We don't know if that's going to stay put or not. We get to the summary of what happened in the quarter rather. Where you can see we're down 2.25% in total on the investable portfolio. LGIP is at 1.15. Total investment is just north of $8.5 million. Of that $8.5 million, we can have liquidity very quickly at 73% of the portfolio if we had to. I don't see that ever happening. We have our targets for how much we're going to invest in corporates and municipals, and we're still a little overweight on municipals, but we have a $75,000 bond that will come off in September, and we will be back within our target. The couple of things here to mention, that's the one coming off in September, the Oceanside, California Revenue Bond, and we had a Farmer Mac at $500,000 that we did not do anything with it in the fourth quarter, but the first week of the first quarter of 23, we did a swap and cashed that out and reinvested it, and you'll see the result of that next quarter report. We turned it over from a 163 to 3 different bonds that are somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5%. And yes, we took a little bit of a hit on the swap itself, selling it at a little less than what we wanted to, but we will more than make up for that in the value of the bonds that we've invested in. And with that, I'd be glad to stand any questions.
Council, any questions about the fourth quarter investment report?
The average rate of return that these funds are
I do not do an average rate of return for the portfolio because there's so many different instruments. The corporate bonds have different characteristics than municipals that have different characteristics than the agencies. I can probably develop an average rate of return for each classification of bond. If that would be helpful for the council, I'll be glad to do that.
Do you know how our rate of return here compares to inflation? I mean, are we just...
Well, inflation running like it is, we will not keep up with inflation. These are almost considered, except for the corporate bonds, although they're a step away from full faith and credit. Municipal bonds and agencies are full faith and credit instruments, the least risky in the world. Their return is fairly low because there's no risk. Corporate bonds have an elevated level of risk, therefore the buyers want to have a higher rate of return. How they ascribe risk to that investment is what drives the rate. And that's why I say it's hard to try to class all three and get one rate of return, because they're so different as far as the characteristics of the instruments. It's like you go down to the dog track and place a bet. You're betting on a hunch. You win big. You lose your money. But if you buy a house, you want a low rate. You want to lock that in. You want security that you're not going to lose the house. That's the difference between corporate shareholders' value and full faith and credit. That's a risk that people want to have a positive return on. The full faith and credit, I want security of the investment. It's going to be a different rate. Does that make sense? Okay.
Still better than leaving it in a checking account or a savings account.
Well, it's amazing to me we have so many places people put their money individually. Credit unions and banks, any kind of savings account you have, you may be getting 0.2% or 0.3%, but yet they're charging credit cards 13.5% and 15% if you carry a balance. There's inequities in our financial system, and nobody seems to care that the working guy gets stuck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to tell you.
Soapboxing. How about other questions about the financial report? And I don't see any other public members here this evening, but I'll ask a question. Is there any public comment on June 2022 fourth quarter investment report? Can I get a motion to accept the fourth quarter fiscal year 2022 investment report as presented?
So moved.
Second.
And moved by Councilor Davis, second by Councilor Harden, that we accept the fourth quarter fiscal year 2022 investment report as presented. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. June 2022 financial report. Is that you again, Mr. Kay? All right.
I get to do this 4 times a year, back-to-back stuff.
Mhm.
So I realize I'm the last agenda item before reports, so I will be brief. Notice every year at the end of the fiscal year I put preliminary because we are now in period 13. We just had our auditors out last week for their preliminary field work. So these are numbers that if we don't do any year-end adjustments, this is what we see. But there will be year-end adjustments to close the books. The Hermiston Urban Renewal Agency ended up with 104% of projected revenue for fiscal year 2022. The last 3 years we have been very conservative in our estimate of revenue. This is a year we were conservative, and I believe it shows that we do things the right way. We're conservative on the resource side, and we try to be diligent on the expense side. This is a perfect example. You can see that we were 2.7% over on the resource side. Expenditures, we were down, however, I'm having trouble reading it, 56%, because Mr. Spencer is minding the store. In the general fund resources, we had $883,000 in revenue versus $382 projected. But if you look in May, you'll see we were $315 below our target because some transfers did not occur in May that we did in June, so it balanced it out. We ended up the year basically $400,000 to the good on revenue, which is a very good thing. That's 2.7% for the year. On the expense side, the last month of the quarter is generally where things are done because we have put off through the prior 11 months paying some bills or doing some things that we didn't need through the course of the year but had to be done by the end of the fiscal year. So we're roughly 188,000 over what we projected. The good news is we're almost 11% below projected this year on our expenses in total in the general fund. As I say in my note, and I'll tell you right here, managers in the general fund have done an exceptional job of managing their expenses for the entire fiscal year. Across the board, everybody met their number or greatly exceeded it. Now, some people would say, well, you're just sandbagging on your expenses. And I would say, as the person who's responsible for helping City Manager Smith put the budget together, we ask for a realistic budget, and then we ask them to be diligent, and they respond, as well as the enterprise funds. So the general fund, which is always this time of year a crapshoot for us, we're lucky that we have ARP money to help prop us up. Had we not had that, we'd have been real close to the minimum reserve requirement. But right now, we're at 1.45 times the minimum reserve. And I'm looking anxiously forward to receiving our allocation in August and then getting to work putting together our strategy for what to do with those dollars. So things are looking good right now. Our utility and street funds, they've all ended up in a pretty good place for the year. Again, the regional water fund, because of the Shears fire, the revenue is down. Nothing can be done about that. It's been taken into account in the budget for fiscal 23. I don't know how, I can't say right now, I can't remember exactly how far down we put resources, but it's pretty low relative to what it was for this fiscal year. And then we have our capital projects report. As I started last month and will continue, those items that have updates or changes from previous months, I tried to bold and highlight. In this case, lift station number 3, contractor provided the final change order to push through the buried rail car. I guess work's expected to begin in a month and a half or so. Okay. I checked with City Manager Morgan to make sure I say the right things because I don't want to misrepresent our CIP. In this particular case, North First Street, North First Place. You know, I'm getting old when I can't read it from this distance, and I should have it right in front of me. That's good. We just talked about the detour route for Northwest 3rd, and that's what's going on with that one to get that ready to go for when they shut down parts of North First Place, starting in the spring or fall. Okay. Gladys and Main water line design work continues. McDonald's and 395 sewer work continues to secure the necessary right-of-way through the property owner. So that's CIP. Not a whole lot of changes. And then in this case, we're just trying to wait to close out the airport apron rehab project. The Riverfront Park rebuild proceeds with staff putting up the playground. And you saw City Manager Smith's report about where we are with City Hall and the current update in his weekly memo last week. No surprises. It looks like they might have found a 400 amp breaker to be able to put the elevator in to finally turn on the AC. I don't know where the status of that is at this point, but that's the big factor right now before they can close the building up and start doing final touches. I do know that. And with that, I'd be glad to stand any questions.
Mr. Kay or Mr. Morgan, what is the change order amount for that? How bad is that going to affect our lift
Yeah,
station
so we
project?
presented that to council here last month, and it came in, it was around $600,000, so that's where brings the total project cost up to about 1.1 million, which is, again, compared to the original estimated cost of rebuilding the existing lift station was around $950,000, and we did that cost estimate 3 years ago, so we're sure that that probably would be roughly similar to what it ended up coming out to now based off of inflation. So.
And there's a delay in that project for North First Street as far as its redevelopment. Is that going to cause some price changes as well? And will we have to modify what we were going to do originally?
For North First? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I think, no, we're good on the North First Place project. And I think if we can get in and do the lift number 6 or lift number 3 project at the same time as along with lift number 6, I think we're teed up and ready to go. All of the dominoes are still aligned.
Okay, good. Other questions on the financial report? Yeah, Mr. Spicer.
I'm understanding these numbers. Looks like we were $427,000 of additional revenue that we got this year that we didn't project.
We made a projection when we put the budget together of what we would get from property tax and the various fees and licenses and franchises. And we pegged a number, and we were conservative in that peg because I don't want to build the expense side of the budget over projecting revenue that would have to then balance it. So we do a conservative projection on the revenue because we don't want to be caught short not having the money to pay the bills that we say we want to do. But yes, we were.
So that 427,000 wasn't included in the budget numbers.
Right. It was not budgeted to that level. No, sir.
And then we were under budget in expenditures by 1.854 million.
Yes.
Okay. So roughly there's $2.2 million that weren't budgeted that we now have sitting around, and how does that get figured into?
Well, it's not money sitting around. It's money that's not been spent for a number of reasons that we may not have had the resource to back it, or it was decided to postpone. But we have cash. It's just not, I don't want to say it's not spent. It's probably earmarked for some use, just not for what was originally budgeted. It does carry over on some of the capital projects. That's where some of the money's gone as far as projects that some folks in the general fund are doing. The money wasn't spent this year, but it carries forward in cash forward so that when they go into their next budget cycle, that cash goes with them, and that will be a cushion to help them meet expenditures. No, because we didn't know where we were going to end up the year. No, sir. It was not, I can't say we said, well, we're going to be about $2 million less in expenditures, so let's figure out what to do with it. We don't do it that way. We look at projected resources for the year, project the needs that have to be met, and then if there's cash to carry forward, it goes into the cash forward for each of the departments.
Okay. Other questions from the council? Okay. Any public comment on the June 2022 financial report? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the June 2022 financial report as presented?
So moved.
Been moved by, I'm going to give it to Councilor Peterson, seconded by Councilor Spicer-Coon, that we accept the June 2022 financial report. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously, 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Kay. City committee and liaison reports. Anybody have something to report on? There was kind of a meeting before this one, right? That's why Mr. Barone was so early today? All right.
All right, I can. That's not my committee to report on, but I'd be glad to.
Oh, that's right. It's not even his committee. You were there, right?
I just wanted
to. Oh, Rod did it.
Jackie doesn't want to report.
So who's going to do it?
You are, Rod. It's your committee.
Okay.
Is your microphone on?
It doesn't want to cooperate. I've worked with two
All of
mics
them?
already tonight.
How about Ms. Davison?
All right. Okay, we had
Still can't hear you.
not only a report from the public safety, but also for the Hermiston Municipal Court. So I'd like to make sure you guys take a good look at the
report, because that's the first one we've had in a long time like this, and they're making great progress in the municipal court, and I was really pleased with the report given, and also the chief did an excellent job on his report also. And some things to note, calls for service are up 6% from last year. Traffic stops are up 20% from last year, despite that they've been running on a minimum staff. Total arrests are up 37%, and misdemeanor arrests are up 43%. And the major spike has been in shoplifting, basically is what's happened there. Aggravated assaults is up 171%. And the biggest, we've got a little more aggressive people out there, and controlled substance abuse and mental illness seems to be the two biggest contributors to that. And burglary is down 39%. That's a good note. Larceny is up 54%. Again, kind of hooked in with the petty theft, this kind of thing. One of the things that's not listed in the report, but the calls for service involving transits are up significantly. And Chief, you might mention what you showed me earlier.
Yeah, so I provided the council some information, but then I wanted to look at it, especially considering the comments that were made tonight specific to calls for service involving transients in the daytime. So for July of this year, 38% of our call load for day shift, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., involves a transient or transients. Last year at this exact same time, it was 21%, so nearly double in a year of what we are experiencing specific to transients. And I'll address the elephant in the room specific to 125 West Cherry. It's going to take a combined effort. The police department cannot do it alone, and so we have a meeting that we're going to be having with the planning department, code enforcement. We'll consider inviting other partners to the table, such as parole and probation, who we have worked with at that residence in that particular residence. We're even going to look at possibly, we'll get information from tax records. The previous owner passed away in November of 2020, so we're not really, probably, unfortunately, we may not be at a part where there's a significant back taxes that haven't been paid, but that's one prong that we'll look at to try to address this. Having been born and raised here, I'm just as frustrated with what we're dealing with and the livability that's being impacted. And I brought it up to the committee, but I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but in November of 2020, after the passage of 110, I wrote a guest editorial and talked about livability is going to be impacted as a result of progressive decisions that, in my opinion, and I don't rarely do I give my opinion, but not well thought out. And so this is what we are experiencing as a result of that.
Appreciate it. Anything more to add, sir? Go ahead.
Chief, have you had conversations with I know our legislators didn't vote for Measure 110 anyway, but have you had conversations with them about the issues that you're confronted with since the decisions? And it's not just all Measure 110 issues, but the issues with transients and your challenges that you're facing in the community based on decisions that are being made down in Salem.
So I'm just going to say it. I've only talked to one legislator, local legislator, in the 10 plus years that I've been the chief of police, and that's Representative Greg Smith, who is always willing to listen and work with us.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilor Harden? Okay. Any other committee reports?
I attended a.
Questions on that. I guess
going back to that, if you looked at this as an ordinance violation, I mean, if there's stuff and material waste accumulating on that property, it would seem to me that you could go in there and go through the city process to get that cleaned up. Plus, that would give police and eyes on the ground to see what's going on in the property.
Sure. So that is one prong to the approach. We also have a chronic nuisance ordinance, but everybody needs to remember that was written before the continual decriminalization of controlled substances. And so that ordinance is very, very challenging, and I don't want to give false hope to anybody that that's going to solve the problem. So that's why I think it's going to be a multiple prong approach to this. And I think Clint Spencer, who's in charge of code enforcement, everybody's on board and everybody wants to try to find some sort of positive resolution.
Is the property owner, the current property owners, a community member, or they live somewhere else?
Are they what?
The current property owner.
I think that's the $64,000 question.
Okay.
As far as who is the current property owner. The nephews are residing there. I don't believe they have, legally, I don't know if they have any right to the property.
Okay. So there's a legal process we can go through to figure out who the property owners are? You don't know? Yeah.
I think all those things are going to be discussed. I know that legal will be involved with planning, with the PD and the city, and we're going to go through all those options.
Perfect. Good. Well, unfortunately, hopefully our members that were here to express their concerns this evening also stuck around or watching online and seeing that we are trying to address this, and we didn't get to it sooner, but hopefully they are aware that we're trying to do some things to make a difference. Councilor Peterson?
So thinking about the mom that was talking about having her kids go to the park and keeping an eye out for, various substances that her kids might encounter, and then thinking about the individuals that are part of our city staff that go and clean those facilities. I'm wondering if we are doing any sort of additional training or giving any sort of additional protective, gear, so that way when those areas do get cleaned up, that we're keeping our groundskeepers safe. And because, if there's paraphernalia around, we don't want somebody who's just out there doing their job getting hurt as a consequence of being there and running into something that was left behind. So I'm just wondering if that's been put on the radar as well, among all of the other things to consider. I'm thinking about the people that want to go to work and have a good day.
Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, I think park staff, encounters those types of things on a fairly regular basis. I think they do a pretty good job on their keeping their folks safe.
The unfortunate part of their job is it's not just that park. I'm sure it's all the parks that they have to be concerned about, and that's part of the park training. I'm sure is just protective gear and don't go stick a bare hand down a trash bag, or pick needles up off the ground with a bare hand. Other committee reports.
We had a Parks and Recreation meeting July 14th. Brandon assures us that he's got a contract for next July for the fireworks. Because it's all in place.
On July 4th?
On July 4th.
Okay.
Yes. So the Hayfields project apparently is now called Prairie Meadows. That was something we learned, and I don't know if that's sticking.
I think the developers just put pretty names like that into a hat and pull one out. I don't know. I guess that was the...
So we talked a little bit about the wish list and some of the projects that we'd like to see there at this new development that happens. The splash pad got a $20,000 grant from Wild Horse, a gift. So that was nice, and there's lots of plans to upgrade the splash pad. Riverfront Park, the toy entertainment toys will be installed beginning in August. On the Funland, the Rotary has installed the picket fences. Looks very nice, and more pickets were sold for the fence. We talked about the swimming pool and the numbers and the daily numbers of people that have been going there. And this was on July 14th, so I know the numbers have gone up since then, but it's over like about $500, 500 people every weekday go to the pool, and on the weekends it's even higher than that. And so we just had a lot of updates on the parks and activities, and the Teen Adventure Park, Brandon had submitted a phase 2, second phase grant money, and we just heard that was not approved, so that's unfortunate. That's about it. Unless Jackie has other things. Yeah.
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
And the monies are supposed to be there
Mhm.
by October.
What's the plan for the second phase? Did you guys talk about it?
He didn't really.
Well, he has to kind of combine everything and figure now if we don't have the money for both phases, so I think the shade part was going to be.
The shade was the big deal, and
the
I
shade was a
believe he
big
said
part of
that
it.
was
Yeah.
$180,000 or something, but it would really render it almost useless if you can't have some shade out there.
So is there some sort of attempt to fund for that again?
I think since we just found out, I think it's regroup time right now.
Okay.
He'll
Gotcha.
try.
Need to call
They just found out this last week.
Burns and
Yeah.
that other group in there and see what they can do for us.
Right.
There you go.
He's going to have to get the skate park.
Skate group.
They're
Yep.
going to have to chip in
Bring
some
all
money
of
of
their
those.
little shade.
All right. Any other committee reports?
We had the Recreation Projects Fund, the TRT awards that we did. We had 6 applicants, and all of them were awarded, so it was a really great turnout. All of them had their requests fulfilled, so it was great that we had the capital to be able to fulfill their projects. One of the things that our committee did ask is for previous years, especially during the COVID years when these were awarded, what the funds, or I guess that's one of the things that we had for Brandon, our Parks and Rec director, is what happened to the funds. For example, the Hermiston Youth Wrestling, they barely had their first tournament that they're able to put on this year, but the previous years, they haven't been able to do that just because of COVID. So we asked that question to Parks and Rec director, and we're waiting to hear back exactly what happened to the funds, because they're supposed to be reimbursed to those applicants. So if there was nothing to pay for, we just want to know where the funds are, so that way we can see if we can do something with that. We also had an EOTech committee meeting at the beginning of the month. They also talked about the Heroes Sports Complex. We had that conversation. Obviously, that came to council. And other than that, that's all I got.
So total TRT, how much?
I believe it was 40,000.
39,000 something, right at 40.
Pretty significant. Yeah. Making some significant contributions of 6 groups. So good. It's always fun to give public groups some additional money to make their programs go a little farther. Any other committee reports? No? Okay. Mayor's report. Just want to remind everybody it's hot out. If you didn't know that. Protect yourselves, stay in the cool, drink lots of water, watch your pets, watch your kids. They can't respond like we can, so just be thoughtful out there. Don't leave kids or animals in hot cars. Try and stay cool, stay inside, and don't get overheated outside. We don't want to see any emergencies because of the heat. Protect yourselves. I also want to remind the community, Fair and Rodeo is coming up. It's right around the corner. Please do your part to participate, help out where you can, even if it's just cleaning up your yard or your business, so we put on a pretty face for those visitors that are coming to see us. And watermelons are out. They're picking. So go get your Hermiston watermelons. So they're finally here.
About time,
Yeah, I know, right? Normally it's 4th of July, but the big guy didn't partner with us as well this year on the rheostat. Got to find the key for that rheostat box somewhere. That wasn't one of the mayor keys that I got when I got the job. I want to thank the chamber too for sending out notices of like ribbon cuttings and grand openings and that sort of stuff. I know they've been partnering with Lily and making sure that we all get notices. I know there's another one coming up here soon for the Diamond Run. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have a event at Maxwell Center. So if you guys can attend. And then, Ms. Morgan, were you going to talk anything about the fair and the parade and that sort of stuff?
I wasn't planning on it.
Okay, so as a reminder, if we're in the parade, Lily, you got an update on that? We're going to be in the parade? Okay. What's the plan? Okay, and we're going to have a different shirt this year. Not sure it's going to be green. All right, cool. So make sure you put that on your calendar as well, and hopefully you can participate. Council's report. Anyone? Nothing? Yeah, it's hot. Turn the rheostat down. All right. How about youth advisors? Anything?
No, I was just gonna say like about leaving your dogs in your car. Yeah, I see some people that do that, and I was like, because I saw a person that did that in Dairy Queen, and that's when I just pulled up. But I don't know how long the dog was in there. They just came out. I was gonna talk to them, but honestly, I don't like. I'm not very forward about that, but just make sure to at least put down your windows on some of your cars, because it gets really hot. It gets almost like twice the amount in your car.
It gets hot in a hurry. You're right.
It can kill your
and it can
dog
ruin.
and your
Just as an FYI, it can ruin your glasses and your sunglasses when it gets that hot. So if you leave your glasses or your sunglasses in there, it can ruin them. So take them out.
Yeah, that's all I had to say.
Yeah. Julissa, did you have something you were going to say? You don't have to.
So, just to fight off the heat, a trick that I learned when I did conditioning like 2 years back, if you feel thirsty, it's too late.
Yeah.
And you need to drink water,
Right.
like immediately. You
Yep.
can't be like, oh, I'm just a little thirsty, I'll put it off for later. Like, no, get water. You're
Right.
dehydrating. Also, if you're walking your dogs in this heat, touch the floor, and if it hurts your fingers, it's gonna hurt your dog's feet.
Very
Like,
true.
You can't expect them to be like, oh no, they have the rough paw pads, they'll be fine. They're not gonna be fine. They're gonna be burned. They're gonna have like the little burns on their tiny little toe beans, and it's gonna be sad, because then they're gonna be crying, and then you're gonna be like, oh, why is my dog crying? Like, take care of your pets. Buy them a little kiddie pool. Walmart has those, and buy Mart. Buy them shoes. They sell those on Amazon. Maybe PetSense. I'm not sure. I haven't checked.
Thank you, Julissa. All right. Assistant City Manager Morgan.
Just two things real quick. I would just advise you to be prepared for probably a lengthy meeting at the next council meeting, the first one in
Longer
August.
than this one?
So maybe. Just want, because as Councilor Davis mentioned, what's now referred to as Prairie Meadows, we've been working, very diligently all spring and into the summer on developing the draft urban renewal district plan, and so we'll have our consultants here to present that to the council, and that will kick off the 2-month consult and confer period, where the other taxing jurisdictions will have a chance to comment and do all that type of thing. But so want to make sure, because it is it's going to be a very significant effort for for the city. So want to make sure that you're prepared. You know, take a look at your staff report early when you get that, and make sure you come prepared with lots of good questions. And then also, just a heads up, I still don't know if we're going to do it in time for that first council meeting in August, but good news, I anticipate receiving this Wednesday 2 very large enterprise zone abatement requests. And so I'd really like to seek some feedback from council as we start to head into the negotiation process with that. So again, just be prepared. I think that first meeting's going to be a little lengthy. So,
does Mr. Smith have another city council tour planned for City Hall?
I'm sure that we probably do, and I'm not sure when that would be. But again, I think he's feeling relatively comfortable with, you know, publicly acknowledging October 1st as kind of the date for when we'll be, you know, taking possession of the building at least. And so I think we're getting down to it where it's now, you know, there's not too many council meetings left before it's just we're going to be in it. So.
Okay, perfect. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, thank you everyone this evening.